Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show. It's the most significant Premier League transfer story of the summer and could be the biggest Premier League transfer fee of all time. We are live to St James's Park to get the very latest on Liverpool's pursuit of Alexander Isak. Is Andre Onana's future in doubt as a Champions League winning goalkeeper is on Manchester United's radar? And yet another player looks like he'll move between Tottenham and Bayern Munich. We'll tell you who. Let's start though with developments at Newcastle, who have turned down £110 million plus add-ons bid from Liverpool for their striker Alexander Isak. Mark McAdam, Michael Bridger here. We'll speak to them shortly. First though, let's go live to St James's Park and we can speak to Keith Downey for more. Keith, very good evening. Right, where are we with this story?
Where are we? How long is a piece of string, Mike? Look, Liverpool have made the formal offer this morning to Newcastle United for Alexander Isak. We know that 2 weeks ago there was an informal approach. Since then, Isak refused to travel with the squad on their pre-season tour. Clearly he's been affected. His head has been turned by Liverpool's interest, so much so that he's training out on his own in the Basque region of Spain with his own team, away from the Newcastle travelling party in South Korea. And that informal approach became a formal offer this morning when, as you rightly say, Liverpool made that offer to Newcastle United of £110 million plus add-ons for Alexander Isak. It was rejected by Newcastle United for two reasons. Firstly, it doesn't meet their valuation of the player, which is £150 million. And secondly, they don't have an adequate replacement lined up. Newcastle, if they were to lose Isak, would have no strikers going into the season, having already lost Callum Wilson. So they're in a very, very delicate situation, Newcastle, as it stands. And our understanding is that Newcastle will only reluctantly sanction a sale of Isak if their valuation was met, if Isak is agitating to leave, which of course he is, and if Newcastle had a top level replacement lined up. And as we know, at this moment they don't have that. So Alexander Isak currently remains a Newcastle United player, but he's not with their travelling party out in Asia.
Keith Downey, live from St James's Park. Thank you. Right, Mark McAdam, you're right across this story. How much of a mess? I don't want to be right across it. How much of a mess is this for Newcastle?
Yeah, it's a huge problem for Newcastle. Of course, this should be one of the most exciting summers the fans have experienced. Let's be honest, they won their first major piece of silverware for 70 years. They got into the Champions League. The feel-good factor around St James's Park and that football club, off the back of what Eddie Howe has built, is unlike anything they've experienced for a number of years. And this was the summer after being shackled by PSR, where they could finally start to spend a little bit of money and start to invest in that squad as they had done in previous windows when PIF took over the football club. But it's certainly not going to plan, and it's becoming actually a real headache. And what we're in now is the transfer games. And unfortunately, we have to try and report on everything that's happening. And it's very difficult to keep up with what's going on at the moment. And when you've got that man, Alexander Isak, the star player, the man that gets the goals, the man that's worth all the money, the man that's at the centre of your strike force for a brand new season, a Champions League campaign, and hopefully a season where Newcastle can deliver more silverware, more successful nights in Europe, and really take the football club forward, you've got this unwanted noise. And I hate to say it, but this is not going to disappear anytime quickly. This is going to rumble on until September the 1st. And Newcastle fans have got to try and get their head around the fact that they may not have that man with them next season, and they may not be as strong as they think or would like to be going into a new campaign. So we've got a lot of twists and turns to go. Me and Michael and the team here at Sky Sports News will try and keep abreast of it, but this is just the start of the beginning. This is nowhere near the end.
Okay, we know you'll keep across it. Right, when we spoke to Keith, Michael, he wasn't sure about replacements. Newcastle have said, quite adamantly, Isak only goes until we've got someone in the door. That's when he can go. So who are the possible people who could come in?
Well, that to me sounds like another potential saga, doesn't it? Because the names we've been given, Benjamin Sesko, where we're told that in an ideal world he'd like to go to Manchester United, but also the other name we've been told is Ollie Watkins. I can't see Aston Villa just moving him straight to Newcastle United without a saga going on there as well. We've got Johan Wissa there pictured as well. I think that's a bit of a separate saga, wouldn't you say, Mark? Because potentially a different
saga within a saga.
Yeah, sagas and sagas, box sets, whatever you want to call it. But do you know what gets me? We're talking about the Premier League. Have we seen the new Champions League format? Last year, clubs came unstuck in the league with this new format, these two extra games. Now, We know Alexander Isak is a phenomenal striker. Well, the one blemish you'd say is potentially his injury record. He's a phenomenal striker. So they need to add on top of that, don't they? Not lose him and gain. That's what I find interesting here.
Yeah, they're in a situation where obviously they need to replace Callum Wilson, hugely experienced striker. Yes, of course, he didn't play as much last season for Newcastle because of his injury record and he was just fighting his body a little bit. But no question, he still had the ability to put the ball in the back of the net. So they need to replace him and then now potentially try and replace Alexander Isak. Now, the problem for Aston Villa is, hey, like Newcastle, we don't want to sell our frontline top-class striker because we will only do that if we feel like we can replace him. And that's the problem they'll have, the same problem that Newcastle are having. And it's that domino effect of if one striker goes here and one striker goes there. But as we've seen so far in this window, there's not a long list of top-class, world-class, Champions League quality strikers out there and potentially available. And that's where Newcastle are suffering.
Why is it so difficult? Because they've won their first trophy in 70 years. They're in the Champions League. Newcastle's a fantastic place. Why can't they get people in? They've got Elanga, haven't they? And that's it.
Yeah, and Aaron Ramsdale, subject to official confirmation from the football club. Now, ultimately, only the players that they've been linked to and missed out on can answer that question. Brian Mbeumo, João Pedro, Hugo Ekitike, Dean Howson. Now, these are all top players, right? And Newcastle fans will say, well, we've just missed out on getting number one targets. But we are trying to compete at the very highest top end of the footballing transfer pyramid. That's where we want to be. We should be targeting the best players we possibly can get. So losing out to Real Madrid, Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United is not the worst thing in the world. But ultimately, they've then got to try and pick up the pieces of this. I don't know, we'd say maybe geographically in the northeast, incredible city, passionate city.
Brilliant
They
place.
love their football club.
Good night out.
Good night out, Michael
Best
Bridge
night out.
exclusive. But the families and wives and girlfriends want to live there when you've got the bright lights of London and Manchester or Madrid. That may be a question only those players can answer.
I think it was hard for Newcastle fans as well. It's like sort of hit a wall out of nowhere because we've talked about Newcastle transfer shows after the last few years. Kieran Trippier sort of starting it all off, huge success. Sven Botman, yes, injuries, huge success. Bruno Guimaraes, one of the best midfielders in the league, huge success. Sandro Tonali, obviously had this betting ban, but great player, huge success. Anthony Gordon, huge success.
Yeah.
Most of their recruitment has been a huge success. Isak, took a risk on Isak. A lot of clubs looked at Isak, they took the risk. So it's a bit of a shell shock, I feel, for Newcastle fans this summer.
Yeah, Eddie Howe's been so instrumental in attracting players. You know, these players that have all wanted that Premier League opportunity, and he's convinced them to come to Newcastle because this is an exciting project. You will be a part of something special. This is a fan base unlike anything else in the world, and you will love playing for them. But that little bit of magic that you had in those conversations clearly isn't working at the moment. And that's the frustration for them, is that the players they're targeting, the top-class recruitment they've done already, like Michael says, it's been outstanding. It just seems to have not had its effect during this summer. But they are going for players that, whilst they're realistic, they're just unattainable because of the other clubs that are coming in to try and get them. And that's where I feel sorry for Eddie Howe, and that's where I feel the frustration of Newcastle fans, because not only is the conversation about losing their top player, but also trying to attract players is becoming a bit of an issue. The good thing for them, though, we've still got, 31 days or so? I dread to look at the clock.
September 1st.
There's a long way to go and there's a lot of time left, so they can get business done. They just need to find the right type of players.
I know you boys are going to talk much more about Newcastle, so we'll leave them here for the moment.